without further ado, I'd like to continue our session today with a very, very special guest we've invited along. It's Yuri Van Geest, who is a very well-known author. He's an entrepreneur. He's done just about everything you can imagine to do with corporate structures and the future of corporations. He's the co-author of a book called Exponential Organizations, which is, I believe, a bestseller on Amazon. And if you haven't read it, you probably will want to read it after this particular session. He's going to overview for us the trend in how companies are becoming exponential in today's marketplace. I'm not going to say any more. I'll leave it up to him, and I'll have a little chat afterwards. So without further ado, Yuri Van Geest. Rudy, welcome.
My wife looked at me and said, "Hey, what's going up there? The water's gone."
Und in so kurzer Zeit, ne?
It's strangely quiet. It looked like somebody had taken the plug out of the sea. And people were drawn to it because it looked so strange. There was a sense of calm. There was no sense of panic whatsoever. You could see forming up from left to right a beautiful crescent on the horizon. It looked quite lovely. We were spellbound. Everybody was looking at it. But at that time, there was no way to know how big the wave was.
Die brechen da hinten und die Wellen, die brechen da hinten auch heftig, oder? Alter Schwede.
I filmed the scene again and again.
Was ist das?
I was in a special way fascinated about it.
Guck mal da hinten, Schnicki, wie das hochpescht. Das Wasser.
I said to myself, hey, what a perfect wave.
Hammer. Was da hinten abgeht. Nein. Aber da hinten, da geht, das ist ja Wahnsinn. Das ist richtig.
ผมรบกวนแจ้งแขกอย่างด่วนนะครับตอนนี้มี
Hi, we all know how this evolved 11 years ago. Very sad. Why did I show you this? Because this is a metaphor. It's a metaphor for what's going on in the world of technology. We are entering a new era of radical exponential change because of technology and globalization. Hi, my name is Yuri Van Geest. I'm the Dutch ambassador of Singularity University. Singularity University is founded by Ray Kurzweil, Peter Diamandis, and Larry Page 7 years ago. They focus on exponentially growing technologies. It's supported by NASA, Google, Cisco, Autodesk in Silicon Valley. And what we see, just like in this video, is that if we see a new wave or something special, we think, oh, it's just a normal wave. But it's something totally new. And we only realize this when it's too late, in most cases. That's human nature, because we frame something new in our old mental model. Keep that in mind. So the next 45 minutes, I will show you the key insights of the book, Exponential Organizations. This is the Dutch translation, because I'm Dutch, as you probably have noticed by my speech. So in the first, let's say 30 minutes, 25 minutes, I will talk about exponential startups, and later on I will talk about the implications for large organizations. So what's going on? Let's see. Yeah. If this works. It doesn't seem to work. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay. That one. Okay. Thank you. Small misunderstanding. AI is easy, AV is hard, right? So what we see in technology, in the last 8 years, if you look at 3D printing, one exponential technology, the lowest price was 40,000 US dollars. Now it's less than 100. Exponential cost drop. If you look at industrial robots, they used to be $500,000 US dollars a few years ago. Now it's 13,000 US dollars. If you look at DNA sequencing, biotechnology, one human DNA profile, I have my own personal DNA profile, or part of it, 5 years ago at Singularity University. It used to take 10 million US dollars 8 years ago. Now it's less than 1,000. It used to take 13 years for one human DNA profile in 2001. Now it's less than 2 hours. That's the speed of change we are talking about. Think about the video. It's something new. You've never seen this before in human history. Here is an overview. I'll keep it brief. For example, solar energy, especially in Portugal, right? A lot of potential. 30 years ago, it cost 30 US dollars per kilowatt hour. Now, it's $6 cents per kilowatt hour. So the future of energy is solar energy. I'm not talking about 20 years down the road, probably 10 to 15. If you look at drones, flying robots, they used to cost $4.5 million US dollars 8, 9 years ago. Now it's less than $300. Same functionality. All these technologies that you can see here are driven mostly by Moore's law. And Moore's law is the doubling of IT capacity every 18 months. Processing power, bandwidth, storage power, capacity. And this Moore's law is impacting all these technologies. Biotechnology, nanotechnology, neurotechnology, artificial intelligence, robots, drones, 3D printing, 4D printing, sensors, and solar energy. And all these fields are converging in the next 5 to 10 years. They become mainstream in the next 5 to 10 years. Some even today already. And we call that the singularity. It's a combination of all these technologies. And this causes this disruption. For example, recently, we have seen a case study in Manchester, now also in China. We can create free electricity from the air by using nanotechnology, graphene, nanocoatings of titanium dioxide. So you split hydrogen into electrons and protons, so you have free electricity and water using CO2 and water from the air, hydrogen. This is possible today. Bye-bye solar energy, also being disrupted. That's the pace of change we are talking about. Another example, the Apple Watch, the wearables. In the next 3 years, most likely, Apple will announce a new Apple Watch with hyperspectral sensors, the most advanced sensors in the world. So we probably will be able to detect cancer, non-invasive, using the watch. Oxygen levels. We can diagnose or analyze food, the composition of food, using your watch. Allergies, vitamins, minerals, calories, toxins, DNA fingerprinting long term, supply chain of food. Think about the implications. So the world is changing rapidly. We have seen this. That's the environment. It becomes exponential. But we have organized ourselves in a linear fashion. So the gap is increasing. Think about the video. And it creates a crisis. As you can see over here, the average half-life of a business competency, IT, marketing, sales, service, what have you, HRM, has dropped from 30 years ago to 5 years today. The metabolism of the world is increasing, from ice to water to steam. Globalization, technology. Also, another fact, 90% of the Fortune 500 companies have been deleted from the list. They still exist in some cases, most cases, in the last 60 years. Large corporations becoming less relevant. Another evidence piece, the average lifespan of an S&P 500 company has dropped from, let's say, 70 years, 100 years ago, to 15 years today. And the next 10 years of this list, 40% will be dropped from this list. They still exist, but become less impactful and relevant. So the question becomes, what's going on here, besides technology? What's going on? You can see over here. The rise of a new organizational model, an organization. It's called the Exponential Organization. It used to take 20 years ago, to become a billion-dollar company, also known as unicorns. Now it takes you less than a year to become a billion-dollar company. How come? That is the key question of the book. So, why are there exponential organizations or exponential startups? What's the reason behind this? First of all, most importantly, we have seen that technology is growing exponentially. So, and we have linear technology and exponential technology. But the same applies to organizations. You have linear organizations, 2 times the amount of people and resources, 2 times the impact and output. That's the industrial model. The exponential organization, they use less resources and people, but they have a deeper impact, a larger impact. And at first you don't notice this, right? Think about Airbnb or Uber, for example. In the first 2, 3, 4, let's say 4 years, you don't notice these startups. And then suddenly, boom, they disrupt you. So at first you have disappointment, the first few years, and then you have disruption. Also, technology in its core is a way to transform scarcity into abundance. Think about, for example, an apple tree, as you can see here. Let's say we go back 100,000 years ago. We don't have a ladder. The apples are scarce in the tree. We create technology or a ladder. We can climb it. We pick the apple. It's abundant. All these technologies, biotechnology, nanotechnology, neurotechnology, mobile sensors, artificial intelligence, in its essence, are all tools to transform scarcity into abundance. So the question becomes, how can you organize for this? How can you organize for abundance instead of scarcity? Why? If something is scarce, people, assets, resources, you own it, ownership, for competitive advantage. But if something becomes abundant, then access becomes more important and renting it instead of ownership. It creates a totally new organizational model. And the third reason for an exponential organization is this. In the last 9 years, we have learned to scale technology, systems. But that's just one building block of an organization, using cloud computing. We all know that. But an organization consists of other things. Strategy, structure, culture, processes, KPIs, and people. And the key insight of the book is that we are entering a systemic transformation phase of organizational models. That means everything of an organization will be fully disrupted. We have never seen this before in the last 150 years. That means if you have built a company in the 20th century, you are doomed to fail in the 21st century because of this pace of change. we've organized organizations in the last 100 years for efficiency, scalable efficiency. Now we have to optimize and organize for scalable learning and speed and flexibility. It's totally different. So the question becomes, how can you scale not only technology, but the whole organization? So what are exponential organizations and startups? In its core, exponential organizations are at least 10 times faster, more efficient, and more effective than, let's say, a linear organization, a classic industrial organization in the same vertical market or sector. They use new organizational techniques and exponentially growing technologies. If we zoom in a little bit, what we see, as quoted by Mark Andreessen, one of the best VCs in the world, software is eating the world. That means each vertical market or organization increasingly will be disrupted or impacted by IT or software. A car company used to be a hardware company, BMW. Now it becomes a software company. Tesla is a computer on wheels. Why? 3D printing, sensors, artificial intelligence. It's more software than hardware. A construction company, same. It used to be a hardware company. Now a construction company is a software company. Why? This building over here. We can 3D print it, 4D print it. We can use sensors and artificial intelligence in the walls to share and remix data. We can use drones and robots already today to build buildings and villas. These are all software-driven, IT-driven technologies. So every company becomes a software company. We zoom in a little bit more. In the last 20 years, we all have seen that on the left. We have digitized information-enabled marketing, sales, and service. How? Online marketing, mobile internet, social media. That's easy. Today, we are digitizing production, manufacturing. How? Industrial robots, think about the Baxter I showed earlier. 3D printing, 4D printing, sensors, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology. We can program matter and atoms, molecules from the ground up, new materials. But in the next 20 years, we will also digitize the supply side of the business. Demand side, production side, supply side. We will digitize creativity itself, innovation itself, concepting, design, prototyping, R&D. That means if we have a team meeting over here together, in the future, near future, if we make a mistake in a decision-making process or a decision, the technology will say, you are making a mistake. For example, groupthink, using sensors, artificial intelligence, and cameras in the wall, and your smartphone or wearable. Because the cloud will correct you and avoid mistakes. This is not science fiction. Companies are working on this. So if we zoom in a little bit more, this is the most important figure of our book, Exponential Organization. What are the key attributes of an exponential organization? I won't go into detail of each of these because of time, but let me show you a few key attributes. Before I do that, please note, on the left you have internal attributes. On the right you have external attributes. On the right you see exponential growth drivers. On the left you see control mechanisms. Think about the great talk by Sergio. We do technologies. It's about the balance of the two. Stabilizing factors and growth at the same time. If you only focus on the right, you create anarchy long term. You need stabilizing forces to counterbalance growth, especially in exponential growth. Also important, all these attributes are self-reinforcing. They are synergetic. Horizontally, horizontally and vertically. So the more attributes you implement, the more scalable you become, the more successful and exponential you become. So on the top we see the MTP. It's called the Massive Transformative Purpose. It's about organizations, not only about making money, shareholder value, but increasingly about creating a better world. Then you have the power of pull effect. That means the best employees, partners, and customers come to you because you have a higher goal. You want to improve the world. Sustainability, healthcare, wellness, or a combination. That's game-changing. It's the glue of your organization. It holds everything together. Your ecosystem outside and internally, your employees. Another one is algorithms, a big one, a very important one. Maybe you've heard about big data and machine learning. So it's basically self-learning software that can detect patterns in data, text, language, objects, faces, photos, pictures, and videos. Today, in most cases, technology is already better at this than human beings. Self-learning software without any human input or intervention. Think about the implications. The most advanced form is deep learning. Larry Page recently said, this is the most impactful technology of the last 15 years in the history of Google. Algorithms. Disrupting a lot of jobs. Also personalization of content, advertising services, as we have seen by Sergio before. So let's zoom into a few attributes of the exponential organization. On the left, you see the classic linear organization. On the right, the juxtaposition, the exponential organization. In the past, we have organized top-down, centralized hierarchy. That's optimal for stability, optimization, efficiency, and control. It doesn't make sense when you have to learn and unlearn speed. You have to focus on speed and flexibility. Then you need a decentralized organization. So the new exponential organizations, you come into this new organization as a new employee, and you can do whatever you want. It sounds crazy, but this is happening. You can create your own new project, you can contribute to already available projects, all from intrinsic motivation, not by a manager. In the new organizations, exponential organizations, they select people for 3 Ps. Passion, purpose, the higher goal, and potential. And potential is defined by curiosity. If you will move into an exponential world, as we are today, it's not about your past, your track record. It's all about your potential, your curiosity, resilience, and also, most importantly, learning to learn and unlearn. So these employees, they don't have job roles, no job descriptions. It's all fluid and flexible. And they are self-starters in large corporations. And this scales up to 5,000 employees already. For example, Zappos, Amazon.com, implementing holacracy. Decentralized organizations. Another example is how to measure success. In the past, we focused on financials, and it was very secret and closed, and we had job reviews once a year. In the exponential organization, they focus on the MTP, the purpose, the higher goal, how to improve the world, besides shareholder value. But more importantly, they reward employees and teams every week. They have 2 goals every week, like Google, 60,000 employees, weekly goals for employees, initiated by the employees themselves, not the manager. And all the goals are open and transparent for everybody to see within Google. It creates a more collaborative culture. And it's more motivating and more about learning. If I have a job review, I work for corporations, large corporations, for 6 years in my life, it didn't motivate me. Okay, you did something wrong, Yuri, 5 months ago. I forgot. Most importantly, if you have weekly reviews, if you make a mistake, it's more easily to correct it. It's easier for scalable growth. The next one is about strategy. In the past, strategy was more about extrapolation of the past, right? 5-year plans, operational plans. That doesn't make sense in an exponential world, only in a linear world. So these exponential organizations, what they do, they have a long-term vision, a purpose that's fixed to improve the world. They have a 1-year operational plan, not a 5-year operational plan. And they have lean startup, so they learn on the go, daily, to iterate, experiment, pivot, learn, adapt. Everybody in the organization. Another change is this. In the past, we used to develop innovation or software in a sequential, linear fashion, step by step, sequential. Now it's done in parallel. It's circular. Build, measure, learn. Build, measure, learn. So we create an innovation, you and me, today, a concept, an idea. Tomorrow we will test the idea without building anything with real customers, online and offline. So we all have assumptions about the customer, his problems, use cases, and our solution. But we have to test those assumptions early on, not after 1 year, in a sequential development process. It doesn't make sense in an exponential world. It's called the lean startup. It's in simple terms, if I'm standing here, point A, and the success of a successful product innovation is called C, from here I cannot see point C. I'm looking like this. But if I create an experiment, an MVP, I go from A to B, and then I can see point C. Only from point B, by moving around. Progressive insights. That's called lean startup. That's part of every exponential organization. Another one is risk. In a linear organization, we punish risks or failures. It creates a culture of fear. And incremental innovation, not radical innovation. That's needed today. These new companies, they embrace failure. They even have failure awards. So you have a promotion when you fail in the best. Yeah, it sounds funny, but it's happening. In Procter & Gamble, for example, or Tata Steel in India, the person or employee or team that learned the most from its failure gets promoted, and a bonus, a large bonus. This is the way to stimulate innovation. Of course, it all will be done within a legal, ethical, and cultural context. You cannot make the same mistakes twice, or same mistake. Another one is this. In the past, a linear organization was thinking, I can do it all by myself. It's a big mistake, because the best people in every organization are outside of your organization, in the cloud. We have 3 billion people online. It will be 7 billion in the next 10 years, based by initiatives by Google, Facebook, Virgin. So think about that. How can you involve those people with your organization? The new organizational model, you can see over here, you have a smaller core team of full-time employees, and you have a larger circle, intimacy circles, of community management, crowdsourcing, hackers, developers, and staff on demand, a flexible workforce. It's totally different. It's more open instead of closed. It's outside in instead of inside out. It's embracing vulnerability to a certain degree, to innovate, to keep a pace. Think about the video, eh? It's a new wave. It's not a beautiful wave, not a scary wave. It's something different. We have to reframe it. Another one is we have to own assets and resources. That's outdated. In most cases, you need to focus on access, resources, assets, like hackerspaces, tech shop, 3D printing, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to own those. Cloud computing. And also, how can you use the assets of your customers as supply or input of your business? For example, Uber or Airbnb, probably well known already in the audience as well. For Airbnb, for example, the customer can offer a new sleeping spot as a hotel to Airbnb for free with zero marginal cost. So you have double network effects as Airbnb. You have double network effects on the demand side. A customer acquires a new customer for free using social media. And you also have zero marginal cost on the supply side because the customer is offering their assets as input for your organization. So what we see, most companies become platform companies. They only do production themselves today. All the other stuff is outsourced to their customers or users or fans. That means R&D, concepting, design, prototyping, done by the customers, not the organization, the business itself. And also marketing, sales, and service is increasingly done by the customers, the users, not the organization itself. Also interesting, most organizations become, on the one hand, more technological, cold, sterile, hard, but at the same time, they become more human. Let me explain this. This is the internal exponential attributes. Dashboarding. It's more human to have weekly feedback cycles for employees. The E is from experimentation, also known as lean startup. It's more human to follow your curiosity as an employee. Bottom up, self-organized. It's more human to have autonomy. That means self-organizing teams with radical decentralized authority to make decisions. Because then I feel more ownership as an employee. It's more human instead of a top-down culture. It's more human to have social technologies to collaborate in real time in one document instead of using email. That's dead. Email is gone in those new exponential organizations. They collaborate in teams internally in real time. No politics, less politics. Examples of exponential organizations. Here you see the top 20 list we published recently. Airbnb, Uber, Netflix, GitHub. A lot of internet companies, but it's applicable to each vertical market. Also telecom, healthcare, retail, energy, everywhere. Skype, for example, was dormant for a long time, bought by Microsoft. Now it becomes more exponential again by implementing a few attributes, as you can see here on the right. They tick most of the boxes. Excuse me, they're opening up their organization to their open ecosystem, open platform, open APIs, hackers, developers, new startups surrounding their core platform to spur innovation and in-source innovation, crowd and community management. GitHub, the market leader globally for open source software development. It's a social network of coders, developers. It's worth $10 billion US. It only exists for 6 years. They already created more than 21 million software products, deliverables. And what is interesting is that the way they organize themselves internally, it's totally in line with the technical architecture of the internet itself. That means the internet is decentralized, open, standardized, and it's about permissionless innovation. You can innovate without, on the edges, without any permission. the organization of GitHub is totally the same. You can do whatever you want when you enter the company. No permission by a manager or leader. And it works. It scales up to hundreds of employees already. It's the market leader. Airbnb. We all know that. They have more than 1 million sleeping spots offered by people like you and me. Citizens, users, customers, not by Airbnb. Airbnb is not like Hilton or Hyatt Hotel, because Hilton and Hyatt have to own hotels and sleeping spots. And every day, 500,000 sleeping spots are being used. And the market cap of Airbnb is 20 billion. It only exists for 6 years. It's quite impressive. And it ticks most of the boxes of the Exponential Organization. And Airbnb has 90 times more sleeping spots per employee relative to Hyatt Hotel and Hilton. And the market cap is already higher than Hyatt Hotel and Hilton today. Only 6 years. Think about the wave, the video. The same will happen in food, finance, healthcare, education, government itself to a certain degree, etc. The last 20 years was media. Now it's happening everywhere in the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. Another example, smartphones. We all know Samsung and Apple, but the third manufacturer is Xiaomi from China, Shenzhen. The company only exists for 4 years now. The market cap is almost 50 billion. What they do, they tick most of the boxes of the Exponential Organization. They ask their fans, their users, their customers to create the new smartphones by Xiaomi themselves. Not Xiaomi, not the organization. So the R&D, concepting, design, new features, functionalities of the new smartphones are done by the fans. It's an open organization, more open than Samsung and much more open than Apple. Interesting. Impact of exponential organizations. Show me the money and facts and stats. I've already shown this one about Airbnb. Quirky. Who knows about Quirky? Okay. Quirky is a platform. It only exists for 6 years. It's a startup. And they focus on consumer products. So they have 1 million users globally, 1 million in 6 years, that are creating, designing new consumer products, just like Procter & Gamble. There's one key difference. The time it takes Quirky to go from an idea towards realizing a product on the shelf space of Walmart, it only takes 1 month. All the steps in between. Idea on the shelf space. Procter & Gamble, more than a year. Procter & Gamble is implementing all the key ideas of our book as we speak. There's more than 100 people because we told them this recently. That's the impact of the exponential startups on large corporations. And Procter & Gamble is, as you probably know, very innovative, so they step into this space to avoid disruption and embrace it and do it themselves instead of being disrupted by Quirky or other startups. Local Motors, for example, you and me can create a new car. R&D, concepting, design, prototyping. Local Motors only does production of the car. That's it. It's a platform. Marketing, sales, service done by the users, the clients, not by Local Motors. It's a startup. Only exists for 6 years as well. The funny thing is, Local Motors, relative to BMW or Audi, is 1,000 times cheaper in terms of creating this car. 1,000 times. That's exponential. Do less yourself, open up your organization to the crowd, community, become more scalable and flexible, and you have higher margin. As you can see here, some more facts. In the last 3 years, the market cap of these organizations, large and small, has tripled to 50x in just 3 years. Google, large organization, 150 billion to 450 billion in the last 3 years. Why? Larry Page came back as CEO, less middle management, autonomy, decentralization, responsibility lower in the organization of Google, more innovation, more experimentation. They created Google X, Google Y also, a lot of changes in line with our model of exponential organizations, and it becomes more scalable, more successful. Xiaomi, I already told about, quirky, bless you. GitHub, a 20x improvement of market cap in the last 3 years. So how to create an exponential organization, especially for you relevant as a large organization? I can imagine you are a little bit fearful right now, based on the video and my previous slides, but okay, there's hope. Why? Because large corporations can deal with this disruption. For example, Google, Amazon, General Electric, and most importantly, Hire. I will show you that later. There are 4 steps to consider. First is transform leadership. The second is to identify, invest, partner, and acquire exponential startups in your sector or vertical market to embrace innovation and disruption. Create a portfolio, leave it independent, don't try to influence it too much according to your own cash cow and core business, because then you will disrupt it, kill it, leave it alone, but learn from it. The third step is disrupt X. It's about creating startups on the edges of your organization, not close to your cash cow or core organization, because if you innovate in your core organization, you will only create incremental innovation or no innovation at all. Why? You activate the immune system of your cash cow, your current organization. It will create antibodies and kill the innovative projects in most cases. Why? If in most cases you have to report to middle management or the CFO, and in most cases don't really understand the importance of radical breakthrough ideas and innovation. What does work is to innovate on the edges, small team, lean startup, independent. You have long-term learning KPIs, not short-term financial KPIs, supported by the CEO, not the CFO or middle management. That seems to work. Disrupt yourself on the edges. And finally, EXO Lite is the most difficult one to implement. How to use those 11 attributes of an exponential organization and implement them in your core business, in your cash cow. That's very difficult. It's feasible, but it's the most difficult one. In practice, look at Telefonica. They have created and partnered with different accelerators, incubators, hackerspaces. In some cases, Google is creating their own VC department, Google Ventures. Leave it all very independent, credible, authentic, and you have success. Like Telefonica, 400 startups, some are failures, part of the game, some are very successful. Wera. Also an example, IDEO, a creative design agency leading in the world. They have learned to disrupt their whole organization. Not just the product or service, but the whole organization, using open IDEO, open source IDEO. Are you willing to disrupt yourself fully? How would you organize your business today without any legacy or inertia or sunk costs? No history. How would you organize today using all these exponential technologies and new organizational techniques I've described earlier? Are you willing to disrupt yourself? Look at the video, the wave. Or are you just standing still? EXO on the edges. How to innovate on the edges. E-commerce. What works for Nike, Macy's, Burberry, Walmart, Target, leave it independent on the edges for 5 to 10 years. It has critical mass. Then you integrate it into your core business. But the digital entity, e-commerce, is more important than the physical retail. So it only works if you integrate it omni-channel, if the emergent, innovative department or startup has more impact and power, influence, than the classic linear department. Otherwise, you get the immune system, antibodies, bam, politics. Another example, an exponential organization on the edges of your organization, on the fringes. Finance, ING Direct in Canada, 7 years ago. Independent employees within this startup, no job descriptions, no job roles, very flexible activities for each employee, 7 times more productive than a similar bank, a linear bank. This is an exponential bank for the last 7 years. Why? Autonomy, decentralization. Another example, Coca-Cola. They have a new purpose, it's called Open Happiness. What they did is very inspiring to me in the last few years. They have embraced Slingshot. It's a way to desalinate water, to create clean drinking water from salt water or toxic water using nanotechnology. So they are implementing this device across the world to impact 1 billion people, offering them drinking water in the next 10 years. That's a higher goal, that's a purpose, an MTP, a massive transformative purpose. That's the new world. And most millennials, the younger generation, they expect that of a corporation. And on top of that, I have 2 kids. If my kids enter a large organization, a linear organization, they go crazy. You know why? They have been trained in their mind, their brain, for 20 years in terms of gaming and internet culture. And the pattern is, in gaming and internet, you are the master of your own universe. You are in control, in the driver's seat. And you enter a large organization, a linear organization, and there's a huge mismatch. 180 degrees different. It's top down and they want bottom up. Self-starting, entrepreneurial. Master of your own universe. They leave. Creating startups, the best ones, etc. Hire. This is my favorite example of corporate transformation in the last 10 years. From China. Appliances, market leader globally, 80,000 employees in a large linear organization. They wanted to become a startup again after, let's say, 20 years. Become less linear, more exponential, more scalable. What they decided is to create 2,000 individual startups in one corporate architecture. Impact, market cap from 20 billion to 60 billion in the last 3 years because of this. Startups with their own P&L responsibility, their own customer focus, autonomy, decentralization, flexible, co-opetition, they compete and they cooperate, but it works. In China, higher. Takeaways, don't own, access and rent assets, people, networks, and most importantly, platforms, other platforms, like Airbnb, Uber, Facebook, Twitter, what have you, LinkedIn. Access. 2, decentralize. On the edges and in your internal organization, decentralized authority, self-organization, self-organizing teams, leaderless leadership. That's the new trend. 3rd, benefit from zero marginal cost, not only of the demand side of your business, viral marketing, but also on the supply side. How can you benefit, profit from the assets of your customers as free input for your business? like quirky local motors, Uber, Airbnb, etc. And Xiaomi. Finally, disrupt yourself. Think about the video. Innovate your mental model, or die, or disappear, become less relevant. Think about the S&P lists I showed earlier. Final takeaway, it took Google 350 pitches to get funded. 350. The takeaway is never give up. The best ideas are always at first controversial. If you have incremental innovation, I pitch it to you, everybody says, great idea. Then you know it's not a great idea. If I pitch you an idea, and some people say it's a crazy idea, it will never work, and some say, could be something, those are the radical breakthrough ideas. You have to focus on those. That's why you have to be persistent, like Google in '98, and Cisco also. Finally, is the glass half full or half empty? It doesn't really matter. Please take my story to your heart, and do something about it tomorrow. Don't ignore the wave. Don't ignore the speed of change. Go for it. Finally, about the book, some good reviews, 15 languages, also in Chinese. Has been awarded Best Business Book of the Year by Frost & Sullivan. It's the highest rated business book on Amazon ever, 4.9 out of 5. You can check it out. Thank you very much for your attention.